This question, first of all, is asking me, how do you believe Winston Sylvester defines the differential between the investor services and the institutional services segments? Winston Sylvester Corporation is one of the more innovative brokerage and financial services corporations in the United States. The company recently provided information about its major business segments as follows, and these are in millions. It has two sections. It has the investor section and the institutional services. Revenues were 252 million or 2,520,000,000 investors revenue. I'm going to drop all those zeros. And institutional is 1,603. Income from operations for investors 1,022, institutional 173, depreciation 92 and 67 respectively. How do you believe Winston defines the differential or difference between the investor and institutional segments? And we would say then that they're going to look at the possibility of the income from operations from each segment. We could consider the cash flows, and we would look at those, and then we'd want to take a look at the variable and the fixed costs of the two segments to consider what their contribution margins might be. I don't know if we have fixed cost information here. Let's go back. If we look at this question, we talk about the contribution margin, we know that we have to not consider the fixed cost, because the contribution margin, by definition, as we learned in an earlier chapter, is our sales minus the variable costs. In Part C, it does say that the depreciation represents the majority of the fixed costs. So let's go back to that question, and we'll see then that the income from operations for the investor section is 1,022. We have depreciation of 92. We need to add that back to the income from operations. In other words, the income from operations we've subtracted, we need to unsubtract it, we'll say. So we're going to add it back to increase our income from operations. So I'm going to take the investor section. I'll take that 1,022. I'm going to add back the $92. I'm going to increase that. So that's going to be 4 and a 1 and a 1 and a 1. So we'd have 1,114 for a contribution margin for the investor section. Now for the institutional, we're going to look at the 171. I'm going to write over here the 171 plus the depreciation of 67. I'll add those together. That equals 238. And of course this is in millions, but I'm dropping all the zeros. The estimated contribution margin for the investor section would be the 100 or $1,114, and for the institutional would be 238. And that's what I'd plug in there. If we were going to consider selling in Part D the institutional services account to another company, estimate how the income from operations would decline. Well, they decline by the depreciation from the investor section, the institutional section, because we have to presume that the fixed costs are not going to change, just like we did in that the last exercise. So we would take the income from operations of 1,022, and we're going to have the additional depreciation of 67,000 come from that. So we would take the 1,022 minus that additional depreciation of 67. So it looks like it'd be 955,000 for the income from operations if we were to dispose of that other section, because we'd still have those fixed costs.